All right, call this meeting of the Tennessee Auctioneer Commission to order. Donna, you give the roll call.
Marvin Alexander.
Here.
Bobby Colson.
Here.
Gary Cunningham.
Here.
Jeff Morris. And Howard Phillips. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thanks to Mr. Cunningham. Going above and beyond the call of duty today. Notice, Donna?
Yes. I'd like to read into the record the efforts we've made to give notice of this meeting. This meeting's date, time, and location have been noticed on the Tennessee Auctioneer Commission's website, included as part of this year's meeting calendar since August 8, 2012. Additionally, the agenda for this month's meeting has been posted on the Tennessee Auctioneer Commission's website since March 25th, 2013.
All right. Everyone had a chance to look at today's agenda. Entertain a motion to adopt it.
I would make a motion that we adopt the agenda and approve it, and if anything else needs to come before us, here we could.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Minutes are under tab 1. Our iPad. Don't want a second to look at them. All in favor?
Aye.
Russia.
Morning, CE seminar. Excuse me. Oh, okay. Do I need to repeat my name? Okay. Ressa Hansen with Nashville Auction School, reporting on the state CE seminar. We're scheduled for May 20th in Lebanon at the Agricultural Center. It's also the Wilson County Fair grounds. So we'll be there at 9 o'clock. We'll be doing 2 hours on firearm sales at auction and 4 hours on contracts and uniform portion. Newsletters are in.
What building is that again?
It's the east building at the
Wilson County Fair.
Wilson County Fair. It's the Wilson County Fairgrounds and the Agricultural Center, the Ward Agricultural Center, and it's about a mile off the interstate. And of course, that postcard's going out with good directions. And there's a Holiday Inn Express right there at the interstate for people who are traveling, and a really, really nice outlet mall on the other side of the interstate for people who are.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Julie? Your turn.
Alrighty. The legal report, I think, is tab 2 in your binders. And we'll start with the first one, 2013-000241. The complainant hired respondent, a firm, to conduct an auction of personal items and equipment which was held at complainant's farm. After the auction contract was signed, complainant had a number of complaints about the way the auction was conducted and outlined those issues in a written statement accompanied by a number of written statements from family members and acquaintances who attended the sale. The allegations in the complaint and statements included that the complainant did most of the work getting ready for the auction, that after the contract was signed, respondent would not allow complainant to remove items from the listing of items to be sold, that equipment was not explained or demonstrated at the auction, that respondent's team members were rude and unprofessional, the auctioneer was going too fast and was hard to understand, that only a few bids were taken and some were ignored and some items were sold too cheaply. The complainant's friend was accused of running up the bids on big items to sell them back to complainant, and that several individuals from the team were in complainant's garage during the auction when there was nothing for sale in there, and were also in the garage on the day after the sale when complainant was not at home. That some roofing was sold on a trailer which was supposed to be sold separately, and respondent's worker was rude to a bidder when the bidder expressed that he had wanted the roofing, and that no one took a bid on a desk, and the auctioneer said he would take it for $5, but the complainant was not paid for the desk. It was also alleged that an individual who was not licensed called some of the auction items. The owner and principal auctioneer for respondent submitted a response addressing each of the issues raised by the complainant. The auctioneer states that he met with the complainant before the auction and looked at the items for sale, and complainant expressed that complainant wanted certain items for high-value items. After the auctioneer put together some information about what he expected the items would bring at auction, he states that he met with complainant and explained the expected total, which he states that complainant was okay with, and told complainant that respondent only does absolute auction and does not sell items on reserve. Later, the auctioneer states that he reviewed and signed the auction contract with complainant. The auctioneer states that complainant sold a large item before the auction. In setting up, the auctioneer states that complainant was difficult about wanting to move certain items himself and complete repairs, and also complainant wanted to remove a couple of larger items from the sale just before the auction due to repairs. The auctioneer states that removing items from the listing attached to the auction contract was a breach of the contract. The auctioneer states that a friend of complainant arrived at the sale to be sure that the items brought what complainant wanted, and was the successful bidder on several high-dollar items, and the individual was buy-bidding, even though he was instructed not to do so. The auctioneer states after the auction, respondent received information that some of the items were consigned and not owned by complainant in violation of the auction contract. As to the allegations, respondent denies that the bids were unclear or too fast, that equipment was started auction day and inspection day, that items were sold too fast and ignored, stating that complainant would have no reason to do so because respondent was receiving a percentage in buyer's premium on all items sold. The auctioneer denies he was rude to a bidder who wanted the roofing, and that the team members in the garage during and after the sale were in the garage during and after sale to get a part for the item which was sold for a bidder, and later to get some tools to load an item for a bidder. As to the desk, the apprentice sold it to himself for $5 after no bids, and as soon as it was over, the auctioneer told him he did not have to do that, so no bid was written on the ticket. However, the desk was mistakenly loaded, and the auctioneer states that the mistake was brought to respondent's attention and the $5 was mailed to complainant. The auctioneer denies that respondent's team was rude or unprofessional to anyone. As to the unlicensed individual, the auctioneer admits that a nephew who just started auction school out of state auctioned the last 3 items under the auctioneer's supervision without any compensation for such. Based on the information submitted, this appears to be the only violation by respondent, and the recommendation is to authorize a formal hearing with authorization to settle by consent order with a civil penalty of $250 for violation of Tennessee Code Annotated Section 62-19-102B, which states that all auctions for a firm shall be conducted exclusively by licensed individuals.
Discussion or any
Well,
motions or?
it just looks to me like that. I don't think there's enough information here. There's plenty of information here, but you don't know really who to believe. It looks to me like the people expecting more than they're going to get. Don't know. Did they send a contract said who was supposed to do the labor?
There was a copy of the contract in like I said, in their response, they said that the complainant wouldn't allow them to move a lot of things, like saying, oh, the field's too wet, you can't move this. So a lot of it is disputes between the two of them that I'm not sure that there would be any way for us to know exactly how it occurred. They sent a copy of the recording for the auction, which I did not listen to the entire thing because it was a very long recording, but at the beginning, it appeared to be standard based on the limited number of ones that I've listened to. But as far as, other than going back in time and being present at that auction, I think it's going to be one version of events versus the other. Did want to make clear that they submitted a number of statements, but several of the people said that they were relatives or acquaintances that were at the sale, and I believe there were a pretty large number of people at the sale. I think around 100, but I can double check if y'all would like to.
But really, the only thing that you see that could be proved was the violation that he admitted to was the...
Did say that there was an unlicensed person that called 3 auctions and said, I supervised, this person wasn't paid for it, but, admitted, said, I'll take responsibility for that. And, there is, like I said, that provision in 102 that does say all auctions arranged by or through a firm shall be conducted exclusively by individuals who are licensed as auctioneers in this chapter, and it appears that that was not the case for 3 of the items, or at least admittedly 3 of the items.
The rest of it's just kind of a he said, she said.
I think we need some letter of warning or what, telling that, he needs not let anybody sell, and, I don't have no problem, sending $100 consent deal over that, but, other than that, I don't see that, or who's telling what,
I think we have to either do a consent order or a letter. I can't send them a letter of warning and a consent order, so it would just be a matter of.
I think we should send a letter of warning,
But like I said, it appeared to be that it's a kind of a family-run business. It appears, and this was a nephew or something or other that they let an auction couple. But I did want to give you all of those facts because it's up to you all, of course, as to whatever action you want to take.
warning.
All in favor?
Better warning, you said, right? Just wanted to be sure I got you correctly, making a note. All right. We ready to move on to the next one? Okay. 2013-002191. Complainant states the complainant is the senior manager of the store. Respondent, a firm, contracted with complainant to hold an auction for all personal property of the store. Complainant outlines a number of complaints regarding respondent and the way the auction was handled. Complainant states that after the auction, complainant was told that complainant would receive the auction proceeds within 10 days after the auction. Complainant states that respondent then refused to release the auction proceeds to complainant because respondent had been served with a garnishment against complainant from another individual. Complainant states that the inventory of the items sold at the auction was missing items. Complainant does not specify what items were missing. Complainant includes a list of complaints, including that respondent breached a fiduciary duty to the store, that money was not released at an appropriate time, theft of property and broken items, conspiracy by respondent, deceptive advertisement and unfair business practices, defamation of character toward complainant, failure to follow requests regarding merchandise placed on reserve, questionable commission fees, constructive fraud, and neglecting to inquire about other consignors and owners, and that respondent's workers were unprofessional and rude. Respondent submitted a thorough response through its principal auctioneer stating that respondent entered an auction contract with complainant, who represented that complainant was the owner of the store, to auction the inventory of the store. Respondent states that respondent was misled by complainant, and after the auction, respondent was contacted by others claiming also to be owners of the store, inquiring about the proceeds. Respondent states that when complainant was not satisfied with the prices of some of the larger items were bringing, respondent allowed complainant to buy back some pieces. Respondent states the complainant was told of the 10-day period within which the proceeds in the auction summary would be sent. Respondent states that 4 business days after the auction, respondent was served with a court garnishment on complainant, which was for an amount in excess of the auction proceeds. Respondent states that respondent contacted complainant to notify that, because of the garnishment, respondent could not pay the proceeds to complainant and they would have to be held in escrow until the matter was resolved. Respondent provided an inventory and states that the inventory includes a complete listing of all items sold and the bid amounts. As to complainant's lists of complaints, respondent states that respondent conducted the auction with professionalism, that respondent held the funds in escrow until ordered by the court as to how to handle the funds, that respondent has no knowledge of any missing items and that the complaint was the first mention of this, that respondent did not conspire to defraud complainant of the money owed from the auction, that respondent acted on behalf of complainant with regard to reserves placed on a few items because complainant still has those items, that all commissions were in line with the auction contract, and the respondent was at all times professional. As to the other listed complaints such as deceptive advertisement and unfair business practice, defamation, and constructive fraud, respondent is unsure of the basis of the complaints but asserts that there was no wrongdoing. Legal counsel obtained copies of documents regarding the garnishment, including a court order which ordered respondent not to disperse the funds until ordered by the court, and an order signed after the response was submitted which directed respondent to pay the auction proceeds into the court so that the court could determine the ownership of the auction proceeds between complainant and the individual issuing the garnishment. Respondent complied with the order to pay the auction proceeds into court, which concluded respondent's involvement in the court proceeding. Based on the information provided and obtained, there does not appear to be a violation by respondent, and therefore the recommendation is to dismiss.
They sent in copies of the court order and all that.
That's correct. I requested those. The final order that directed that the money be paid into the court was not signed and a copy issued until after we had gotten the response, so that's why I had to follow up to get a copy of that. So the money has been, at this point, I think the latest development, we haven't, putting the money into the court was the respondent's last involvement, so that was the last, information that they had, was that money's in the court, and it's up to the court now to determine how the money is going to go. Respondent's kind of out of the situation at this point by court order.
Up to council's recommendation.
I second.
All in favor?
Okay, 3, 4, and 5, 2013, 002621, 2013, 002581, and 2013, 002611. Complaint was submitted by a licensee who stated that Respondent 1, a gallery, does not use licensed auctioneers. In the complainant also stated that Respondents 2 and 3, both unlicensed individuals, were auctioneering without a license. Because the complaint did not give detail with regard to where Respondents 2 and 3 were auctioning or where those unlicensed individuals could be found, complainant was contacted and gave information that Respondents 2 and 3 were calling auctions without a license for Respondent 1, gallery. Complainant could not provide addresses or locations for Respondents 2 and 3, so the complaints for Respondents 2 and 3 were also sent to Respondent 1's address, along with Respondent 1's complaint. The owner of Respondent 1 gallery submitted a written response to the complaint against Respondent 1. The response states that Respondent 1 used Respondent 2 as an auctioneer because complainant had used Respondent 2 as an auctioneer before, and Respondent 3 took over calling auctions briefly but could not provide proof of licensure when Respondent 1's owner requested it. Respondent 1's owner expressed regret over not checking Respondents 2 and 3 for papers or licenses, but Respondent 1's owner says she took them at their word when utilizing their services for a brief period of time. The response states that Respondent 1 terminated the services of both Respondent 2 and 3 when it was learned the individuals were not licensed, and now has a licensed auctioneer calling all of Respondent 1's auctions. The licensed auctioneer confirmed this information. From the information obtained, it appears that Respondent 1 gallery's brief use of Respondent 2 and 3's services is ended, and Respondent 1 is now in compliance by utilizing a licensed auctioneer to call all auctions. As to Respondents 2 and 3, there were no responses submitted due to the fact that their complaints were sent to Respondent 1's address. The owner of Respondent 1 stated that they had been terminated, and the owner did not have Respondent 2 and 3's home addresses to forward the complaints to them. It appears that no one involved in the complaint knows their addresses or locations, and Respondents 2 and 3 cannot be located at this time. The recommendation is to ask to Respondent 1 a letter of warning regarding using a licensed auctioneer to call bids at all auctions under Tennessee Code Annotated Section 6219-125B. The recommendation is to close as to Respondents 2 and 3.
Or if this was just at one auction or several auctions, more than one.
Spoke with the owner. It was for a brief period of time. She said that up until she thought around the end, I caught her on the telephone. She said until the end of the year that they'd had a licensed auctioneer. They had utilized Respondent 2 and 3 for a period of maybe a month or two before this was brought to their attention with the complaint. And then she said at that time she immediately took action to terminate them from calling bids and hired this licensed individual. That licensing information was provided in a response, so I also contacted that auctioneer by phone who confirmed that information. And that auctioneer is licensed, is a principal of his own firm, and appears to be an active licensee who is currently being used to call the bids at the auctions and has been for at least the last month or so. Like I said, this complaint was submitted by, it looks like an industry member in a similar location, and the person who submitted the response indicated that one of the unlicensed individuals was being, kind of used by her for a little while because the complainant himself had actually utilized the person. So I don't know if this is some sort of competition issue. This is not a consumer complaint. It is from a fellow licensee in a similar area.
What's your opinion?
Easy and quick
Like to know, we don't know, well, finding them, I don't reckon, but 2 and 3 bother me more than one, does.
And
You know.
when these are closed, they, of course, if we get subsequent complaints against them with more information, we will then have a record in our regulatory board system that these complaints were filed. But I made every attempt to speak with the complainant to get their whereabouts, to speak with this gallery owner to get their whereabouts, and nobody can even give me a town.
If
So as far-
2 or 3's running around saying they're
So
licensed
as far
auctioneers,
as-
that bothers me more than one.
I don't know of any. I mean, I don't know that we can even send an investigator because we can't even get anybody to pinpoint down to a town. They told me at one point they were good old country people. So locating them based on information.
I don't think we could probably find them.
I'm not on.
I can
Well, they're probably local folks, they probably all know.
Yeah.
When you're speaking, I got some feedback here. That red light must be on the microphone, or it's
Mine's
not
coming on.
working. It's been on?
Yeah.
I can't see it.
Yeah, it's on.
I sort of have a problem with the lady. I mean, if she had this at one sale, you know, she let somebody get up and auctioneer, that's different than if you run something for a month or two. Excuse me, and you're having, you know, she doesn't think enough about whoever she's gonna hire to know if they've got a license. I mean, that's her job. But she doesn't have a license. She just has a gallery license. But yet she's the one in charge.
Phyllis, you know, my thought was just looking at the gallery license statute that, you know, the gallery license is the one that's, you know, signing the consignment agreements, issuing the closing statements, and collecting and dispersing the funds. And at this point, it appeared she had utilized these unlicensed individuals for a couple of auctions just to do the calling and made the mistake of not getting the paperwork, which, based on my discussion with her, did not appear she conveyed to be a mistake she would make again. And I thought, in light of the fact that she had corrected the issue, and there didn't seem to have been any complaints by anybody that had attended the auctions that they had not been given what they were owed, or that money was mishandled. I thought a letter might be appropriate, considering there was no history here.
At two and three, you've got names on them. You don't even have a name.
I have names,
Okay.
but no location.
But have they ever been licensed?
There was not to our knowledge. One's an extremely common name, and it didn't appear there was no active licensee by that name. But the other one, no record of ever being licensed. But had never had any complaints from them in the past, and without getting address information from the complainant or this gallery person, we just did, at this point, don't have any idea where they are.
Yeah, what do you think, Gary? You're a consumerist.
You would. I forgot.
Marvin said. Probably.
Gary, I don't think your mic.
Oh, it's not.
Is he turning red?
You just tilt it down.
Make a recommendation that we accept the recommendation.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Did that include closing as to respondents 2 and 3? You didn't include that in your motion, but I just wanted to be clear.
Oh, yeah, he said take legal's
Okay,
recommendation.
I just wanted to be
Yeah.
sure. I didn't want to skip on ahead if I'd missed something. Okay. Number 6 is 2013-002641. The same complaint mentioned above also stated that respondent, a gallery, did not use a licensed auctioneer, but the complaint did not provide the name of any unlicensed individuals who called auctions for the respondent. The owner of respondent submitted a response stating that respondent has a permanent auctioneer and provided the name and license number of the individual who is an active licensed auctioneer. Respondent's online auction ads all appear to confirm that this licensed auctioneer is the auctioneer for respondent. And I did subsequently make telephone contact with that auctioneer, who confirmed that he has been the auctioneer for this gallery since 2001. I spoke with him. When that auctioneer is not available, respondent's owner states that the auctioneer sends another licensed auctioneer to take his place and call respondent's auctions. On one night, a few days before the complaint was submitted, respondent's owner stated that the regular auctioneer was called away on an emergency and told respondent that an unlicensed individual could call that night, since respondent was selling all of that individual's items that night. Respondent's owner states that if they were in the wrong on that occasion, they were unaware, but in all other instances, respondent has used licensed auctioneers. Respondent's owner indicates familiarity with complainant as a fellow industry member who has an auction and has attended respondent's auctions. Recommendation is a letter of instruction regarding using a licensed auctioneer to call bids at all auctions under Tennessee Code Annotated, Section 6219, 125B, and the exemption found in Tennessee Code Annotated, Section 6219, 1035, for any person performing acts relating to property owned or leased by the person.
This is the same gallery?
It's a separate gallery. This was all lumped together in one complaint. That's why it was the same complaint, different gallery from the other one. The complaint.
Same complainant.
Same complainant, different
gallery.
gallery.
Okay,
I'm
okay.
sorry, I could have stated that
Okay.
clear. It was all lumped together into one complaint, but separated into.
What they,
Now, so what they're saying that the guy that owned the item sold it, done his own auction?
He called the bids that night because all of the items that were being sold that night were his items.
Was he bought it for this?
We don't know. That was information I couldn't obtain there, but
But it also stated they were aware that this.
Of course, they're claiming they thought it was legal because they own them. They don't necessarily make it legal, like you said, if he bought them for resale. If he's in the business of doing it.
You know, when you take that gallery license, you've been to school.
Yeah, that's why, that's not a very good excuse.
Or what you're doing. I'll make a motion to send the $500 consent.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye. And I think I'd like to make another motion that we obtain the person's name that was selling unlicensed.
the name was in the response.
Huh?
I do have the name that was in the
That
response.
we issue
We'll have to open a complaint
that's
first.
what I'd
just-
like to see done.
Okay.
Do I need to make a motion for that?
Um,
Think be an issue. Or could I just put in there, well, we can't send him one because he has no license.
You'd have to open a complaint for unlicensed activity and proceed from there.
Okay.
I second it.
Oh, yeah,
Just haven't voted.
it changed a little bit there. All right, we got it. Susan, second by Gary, all in favor?
Aye.
I was trying to figure out how to get back to the library.
That's all I have on.
I will. You went first. We ain't got you up here to show us today.
That's all I have on the legal report, and we have the presentation and discussion of proposed rules, although Commissioner Alexander gave me some information about altering, changing some rule language, and since we're down to commissioners, we didn't know we might defer the rules until next month. I could add
think
these
it's a
in.
good idea.
And that'd be
Don't
just
y'all-
fine.
I'd make a motion we table that till next meeting.
Everybody's here.
It'd be fine, and I'll work on that language that you gave me to work in there, and we can add that to the draft to discuss next month.
There you go. Sometimes my old. All right, so I guess that gets us down to the complaint comparison report.
Yes, sir. You'll turn to tab 2. We'll look at that report.
Tab 2 or 4?
I'm sorry. Tab 4. And my other glasses. This is a complaint comparison report between April 1st this year to where we were on March 30th of 2012. You'll see on the top grid, March 30, 2012 showed 79 complaints were pending. At that time, 61 of them were over our 180-day benchmark for resolution, showing 77.22% there, outside of the guidelines. And the below grid, 65 today is pending, 46 over 180 days. And I believe, as you all know, those are the
Or 1 day over there?
one person has most of those for 70%. But our percentages are looking better. If you take those 46% away, I believe we're in the 95% with the other complaints that we're working on.
If we get rid of that one, we'll be in good shape.
Yes. The tab 5 is your budget report for month ending 2/12. shows where the fees are coming from, auctioneers, the initial license fees, the reciprocals, the renewals, the reapplies. That right-hand column shows you what's come in our office from July 1, 2012 till 2/28/2013, our fiscal year. The bottom grid shows the fees that have been received on firms, galleries, and public auto auctions. 41,656 for firms, and just above there for auctioneers, 86,213, for a grand total of 127,869 in fees. The next page over is your, I'm
That's
sorry,
one question.
okay.
Some way I went out of that when I hit something. What I hit on this main screen to open back up. With the library.
iBooks.
iBooks. Says iBooks.
For books.
Did it say books?
iBooks.
Yeah. There you go.
Thank you.
Now tap till you get to where it says library. There you go. iBooks.
Now we go to tab.
Tab.
Wait, though.
Yep, Gary don't have no tab 5, his is blank.
It's all right.
Somebody
Tab
put a
pages
magnet
there?
next to it and erased it. I saw that on the spy show. Saw it on Burn
I
Notice.
think you just typed right beside that little block down there.
Okay, we're all,
Bring in,
we can share it, Gary.
it's cutting it
That's
off.
all right.
Paper copy. And I just went over the revenue comparison. Go on to the expenditures.
Oh, we have many people.
Not like we used to. That's been resolved, I think, where we were at about, 30% of them, when we first took over, were renewing late. We had to set these charts up and work them through the system. Now we're down to, what, maybe 5-6% that renew late, but they
That's good.
pay the late fees, they go right on and do what the chart requires them to do.
Most of them.
If any of them complain, tell them they could have a cosmetology license.
For fees or much more. Any more questions on the revenue? We'll look at the expenditures then. The shaded blue column on the right is through 2/28/13. Again, from July 1 of 2012, showing where your expenses are. And the top shows there for payroll expenditures so far, $74,242.99. The other expenditures, travel, printing, communication, maintenance, supplies, rentals, computer-related services, state professional services, total of $24,294.98. A grand total of $98,537.07 in expenditures. Of course, we don't have cost backs yet. We won't get those till the end of the year. But your total expenditures, $98,537.97, and as we saw on the previous page, the revenue, $185,533. Next page over is your education and recovery fund fees and expenditures we put on the same page. Top block is for your revenue that has come in. Right-hand column shows $46,600. The majority of it, of course, is in renewal fees. 37,000. Bottom grid shows your expenditures. Majority is for the third-party professional, that's your newsletter. $22,594 in expenditures. issue to be added to.
Did nobody on the hearing we had last month, did nobody request to be paid up from this bond?
We had that one that had been paid, it had already been paid, $2,900 or
I knew the 2,900, it's on there.
Any other questions on the budget report? The only other thing I have on the agenda is to discuss with you, a new requirement put in by the Kentucky Commission, Auctioneer Commission, regarding, their new requirement for continuing education. I found out about this after our last meeting. I think Ressa and Susan had talked, and we couldn't get it on the agenda at the last meeting, but shortly after that, I did call and talk to the director of the Kentucky Commission, and I looked on their website and found that, they are requiring this core course. I'll just read the first sentence to you. Susan just passed out a printout from their website saying that the Kentucky Board of Auctioneers requires licensees to complete a 6-hour board-approved auction law core course, once every 4 years to renew their license beginning with the 2013 renewal year. I did talk to her. She said there are no exemptions except for the state of Indiana. For some reason, they honored a reciprocal agreement with the state of Indiana, and I want Ms. Hanson to come up
I was
and
fixing to ask you, I couldn't see if you were still here.
talk to you about this, because they have only approved 5 core course providers for the auctioneers, and this is any Tennessee licensee who also holds a Kentucky license must get this 6 hours sometime before in the next 4 years. And the National Auction School is one of those providers that has been approved. I've got so far, I sent out a letter to all the states that we have a reciprocal agreement with, because when I talked to the director in Kentucky, I asked her if she thought this new rule by them would have any bearing on our reciprocal agreement, and she said she didn't see why it should. And excuse me. And I said, well, if you've given Indiana a reciprocal agreement, I wondered if it could also work with Tennessee. She didn't know. So I've written all of the states we have an agreement with. So far, I'm sorry, I have a cold. So far, in your booklets, I think there are 3 states. This morning on my computer, I had the copies from Louisiana, Virginia, and Arkansas that Susan is getting. I'm going to let Ressa talk.
Just a little bit of background on this Kentucky core course. We've been talking with the Kentucky Licensing Board, with the Kentucky Auctioneers Association, and also with the author of the course, who happens to be one of the commissioners on the Kentucky Auctioneer Licensing Board Commission, as far as National Auction School is concerned. And the way the history behind this is because Kentucky did not mandate auction education, basic auction education, until 2009. They have always had a number of auctioneers in the Commonwealth who never had any basic education and came in either from experience or through an apprenticeship program without any formal education in law and legal conduct. So in theory, we fully support the theory behind this course requirement. However, and I think that they have had some issues in Kentucky with untrained people then taking on apprentice auctioneers and not educating them in the laws and not having a clear understanding of the laws of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Our position is that this course, we have submitted this course to the Tennessee Auction Commission staff and an outline of this course for approval for Tennessee CE credit. But our position is, and the author of the course's position is that it is a very, very basic course. It starts with definitions. It starts with the concept of licensure. The way the course is broken down is 3 hours of law concepts specific to Kentucky auction law, which pretty closely mirrors Tennessee's law, but specific to Kentucky's auction law. 3 hours of auction law concepts, an hour of ethics, an hour of escrow, and an hour of contracts with some discussion on warranty of title. So it doesn't even get into the Uniform Commercial Code or the sales article. Our students that receive basic education are educated even on a basic course at a higher level than this course is written for. So it's a very, very remedial basic course that is that requires providers to offer it exactly as it is written, with no changes to any of the content, no changes to any of the slides, no additions, no subtractions, but just to present it exactly as it is written. For Tennessee resident licensees, and in speaking with Commissioner Gribbons, Joe Gribbons is the commissioner who wrote this course. In speaking with him the other day, he understands some of the limitations. For licensees who come from states like Tennessee, where basic education is required, these basic concepts have been covered thoroughly. And for states like Tennessee, where the state CE seminar last year covered law, and this year is covering contracts, we seem to think that those courses should be accepted because they exceed the information and the instruction that's in this course. Apparently that is not the position of the Kentucky board at this point. Also at issue that we have as an educator is that the licensing renewal period for Kentucky for this period began July 1 and runs through June 30. They're on an annual renewal. And Kentucky has always been very generous in accepting other states' continuing education. And they will continue to do that unless you fall into the core requirement year. So for the year 2013, those licensees, all licensees with a Kentucky license who have a birthday in January, February, or March are required to get this core curriculum, whether they've had 6 hours of instruction in something else or not. And then next year it will be all the licensees with a birthday in April, May, or June. So it's done by quarters over a 4-year period of time. So I know Commissioner Alexander, you had mentioned that you would be required to take it in 2016. So in the way this is written, you couldn't take it in 2013 and use it in 2016. You would have to take it in the year in which it's prescribed based on your birthday. So we kind of take some issue with the short notice. The course was not rolled out and made available until January 13 of 2013. So students that we have already educated in Kentucky on such issues as law and contracts of a more advanced nature are not going to be allowed to use that credit. So we are going to appear before the commission on that issue. Additionally, an issue for us as educators is that we are also approved to provide continuing education for Indiana. The reciprocal agreement that they have with Indiana is based upon the fact that Indiana's code specifies some of their continuing education hours have to be obtained in core subject matter such as law, ethics, escrow, and contracts. And so a student who receives education for those subject matters or Indiana continuing education can use that for their Kentucky continuing education credit under that agreement that Kentucky has with Indiana. However, because we're a separate provider, they can't answer the question to me at this point on whether or not the courses that we have approved for Indiana CE would in fact be applicable for the Kentucky core course for licensees who are licensed in Indiana. Which takes us then back to the question of if we have a contracts course that is approved for Tennessee continuing education and also approved as a core requirement for Indiana, if a Tennessee licensed auctioneer takes that course, will they not accept that course? And right now it appears as if the So we will be appearing before the Kentucky Commission April 15th in Louisville. We are also concerned as the provider for this state that we have a contracts course that this state is offering. Last year we had a law course that the state offered, and we're concerned that because those courses far exceed the information that's in this core course, that the licensees are being penalized by this requirement. So that's what I have at this point. We've looked at it from a lot of different angles.
So your standpoint is that anybody that's been through the Tennessee continuing education or whatever has already got this and more.
Absolutely. And they've had this and more when they came through basic education. They had this and more when they came through 30-hour education. And I shared with Commissioner Gribbins last week. I mean, we've had, wonderful conversations. This isn't a, hostile issue. And I think he's sympathetic to it. That the intent of this may be good, but the application of it becomes a little bit grayed and harder to get your head around when you start looking at out-of-state auctioneers who have been trained, for whom the issues that prompted this course to be developed are not an issue for. Every Tennessee auctioneer that's licensed in Tennessee, whether they act like it or not, has been well instructed far above and beyond this course.
So they exempted Indiana, or accepting Indiana, not exempted, but accepting Indiana's education like it is.
Right.
And the possibility they may accept Tennessee.
Well, I don't know if they will or not. I mean, we're looking at it from a provider standpoint, and that I think is the argument that we can make, is that we are a recognized provider for Indiana, and so if we offer a course in ethics that is recognized by Indiana, then it should follow suit by logic that the Commonwealth of Kentucky would recognize it. Right now, the position has been firm that the Commonwealth of Kentucky will accept nothing other than this core course from anyone other than, issued from anyone other than the state of Indiana. For those licensees who are required to have it. The other issue, the second issue that we're bringing before that board is, of course, those licensees that we've already educated in good faith for this license period, and having some kind of provision or exemption for them. So we're concerned on a lot of different levels, and we are prepared to, carry our best arguments before that board and present it to that board to see if we can get some remedy for our students and our graduates, and to try to get a grip on how this adversely affects licensees.
What do, and this might be a question for Julie or Margaret, you have a Kentucky license. What does, or Ms. Hancock, whoever, what does Kentucky have to do, a Kentucky licensee have to do to get a Tennessee license, reciprocal license?
And it's a letter of good standing from the state of Kentucky, and that's it.
We accept their
fee that they pay in Kentucky.
Yeah, and then we accept their education and all that.
So, if they're gonna do that to us, we can make a rule that Kentucky auctioneers have to take a Tennessee course.
That was kind of my
Course.
thought when I said that.
We can do that because we made Mississippi start paying the same fees that they charged us. So, if they're gonna just set a whole new set of rules, then we need to make them do it.
Talked to the director in Kentucky, she's unable to find typical work well, and I asked her if the laws had changed considerably in Kentucky that was requiring this all of a sudden with new force, and she said no, but it's just something the commission wants everybody to have, and I said, well, it's possible the
I
Tennessee.
think I'd like for them to have Tennessee
I said
education.
it's possible they could require Kentucky licensees to have the same 4 hours under our agreement.
What do we have to do to?
6 hours.
Statute on reciprocity states that the Tennessee Auctioneer Commission has the authority to impose any fee or licensing requirements on applicants for licenses from a reciprocal state that the reciprocal state imposes on Tennessee licenses by rule, regulation, policy, or law. So I'd have to look into exactly how we needed to do that.
We can do it by rule. I think we need to go ahead and draw some up, make it part of this rule change stuff we're doing right now.
Let me look into it over this next month, and if it's something we need to do by rule, I'll try to include something in
Because I
the
think,
draft.
in
for
my
next
opinion,
month.
I don't have Marvin and Jerry feel about it. In my opinion, we need to go forward with it. And if they back off, we can back off. But if they don't, we can't, we won't, you know.
I agree with that. I think we'll have a better understanding when you get back from your meeting on 15th of April.
But I don't think we need to wait and see how that goes. I think we need to go ahead and move forward with.
Well, let's let Ressa speak to him about it, tell him she is at our meeting and that was what we're discussing. What would be the problem with that? I mean, just saying that because this is a public meeting, they can go on.
I can go on the internet and see it too.
Where were you reading that, Jimmy?
62-19-117,
In
which
the
is
law?
reciprocity statute. It's subsection F. It's the very last one.
I think that gives us the authority to do it, right there.
When we changed that in Mississippi, the fees, I don't think we had to have a rule.
It says by rule, regulation, policy, or law. So I
Okay.
just
I didn't
need
catch
to-
the policy part.
I just need to determine, probably look at this a little harder to see, we need to be sure the way we're doing it is the correct way, so, I mean.
Policy would be a whole lot easier than rule, and a whole lot faster.
I would make a motion that we adopt the policy today that Kentucky complies with the new rule just like they're making us do. We can also rescind the policy.
I think I would need to draft that language and have you all approve it, so it might be something I need to bring to you next month. I can work on drafting some language
I'm
for that.
gonna still make a motion that
That you drafted.
you draft us a policy that Kentucky has to comply with the Tennessee Court Code course,
What is it, how many hours?
6 hours, same as Kentucky does before license or renewal.
Let Russell share that.
Well, it won't be adopted yet, but you can let them know that they've instructed.
And maybe Louisville will win a national championship. They'll make them happy and they'll all go away. So.
Yeah, we need a second. So,
That's it.
I think it needs to be Tennessee law and an hour of contracts, an hour of ethics, and an hour of what else?
Let's just make it to fit with theirs.
Yeah,
Be simple.
whatever she said theirs was. Advertising, yeah. Hour of why you should run your ads and agree with you.
If we did that, then we would have the right to approve the courses we've already adopted, looks to me like.
The state seminars are not called core courses. However, the state seminar last fiscal year, did cover law, and this year does cover contracts. And as the contractor for the state, I did pose that question to Commissioner Gribbons. If, even though only 1 hour of their core course is dedicated to contracts for any Tennessee licensee who took the 4-hour contracts course offered by the state, would that meet that hour of that core course requirement? And the answer was that would have to be presented to the board, but probably not, because it's not identified as a core course. So I think, core for the states, every state that has continuing education. There are 13 states that have continuing education requirements for license renewal. Nashville Auction School is an approved provider for every one of those 13 states, and we are the only provider in this country, including the National Auctioneers Association, that is approved for every state requiring continuing education. So we spend a great deal of time looking at those requirements. A number of other states do have core requirements, however, those states do not have reciprocal agreements with Kentucky, and that would be mainly Texas and Illinois. For requirements, Wisconsin Texas has a Texas law court. North Carolina has attempted to implement a North Carolina law court. Supposed to go into effect this year, but action yet. So, and then Illinois also requires some core in ethics contracts, state or federal laws. So each state defines what their core requirements are. Escrow is always considered to be a core course as well, but those will vary from state to state, and each state sets those requirements. Indiana's requirements for their list of core courses do include ethics, escrow and trust accounts, contracts, state-specific law, or federal regulations, which would cover the commercial code under the federal regulations. And they can receive all of their hours in any one of those subject areas as long as they have at least 4 of their 16 hours out of a core subject area. So those are, like I say, those requirements are going to vary from state to state, but that language seems to be important to Kentucky at this point.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor that Julie work on drawing up some policy rule, or however she figures it needs to be, for Tennessee to mirror what Kentucky's doing for their reciprocal people coming to Tennessee.
We want it.
It's no rule, it's just a policy.
Policy, right, policy or whatever she determines it needs to be.
I'll look into it this month to see what we need to do, because I need to see it, we need to make it very clear what we're requiring, but I'll look into it and report back with something next month so we can move forward in that direction.
Have a second by Gary, all in favor?
Want it based on birth dates and give them 4 years to do it, just like their
I'll give them 2.
requirement.
I think what y'all were just saying is they need to complete 6 hours for each renewal period here. Because right now, the way our rule, it states that all licensees, unless you're exempt from that, must obtain 6 hours of continuing education per renewal cycle. So is what you're saying that Kentucky, you're not going to recognize the Kentucky 6 hours as that 6 hours, they need to get 6 hours more? Is that what you're saying? I guess.
Well, I think we'll have to set up a core course, They're not gonna recognize what we're getting, so.
So you're essentially thinking set up some kind of core course and then say, Kentucky, you have to take our core course.
That's what they're saying to us, right, Vincent? Huh? In other words, see, if we could take the people, I'm exempt up there as their regular continuing education still, but I'm not exempt from that core course. So anybody that has to have, that's not exempt or grandfathered for continuing education, they don't have to have that plus a core course that we'll set up or approve. Just make it equal, is the only thing I'm saying.
I'll look into it next month.
Did their legislature do that or their commission?
Their commission.
Their commission is
With this Kentucky issue, does the commission want to look at all of these reciprocal agreements? Do you want to look at overhauling the agreements? What would you like to do? Would you like me to continue gathering these and bring them to you?
I think that would be good.
I think if we don't have them all, maybe we should wait and get them all at once, if that would be.
Yeah, I think that would be good. I'd like to look at those.
We can try to work on compiling those and getting them all to you at once. That way we can take them all up at one time, rather than piecemeal.
I think that'd be good.
I'll keep trying to get them, as I said, Kentucky.
So we lost a bunch of ours in the great
Yes, we
2010
lost
flood.
all of them, and Kentucky couldn't find theirs, and there's been one other state that Indiana couldn't find theirs either with Tennessee. So anyway, we'll keep
That could be
bringing,
interesting.
we'll bring this back as well. And look into the rules. That's all I have on the agenda, except for this gentleman sitting behind me, came in today, you not recognize him from being here.
That's why we say when we adopt the agenda, anything else that might come up.
I assure you, this is my second month in a row up here, and probably another couple more, I'll have this down and know how to do it the right way. We covered at the end of last month's meeting my delinquency on the renewal of my license. The procedure to renew that license now calls for, well, if you like, I'll just read you the written request. That'll cover it, I believe. It says, my auctioneer's license, Tennessee number 5053, has been delinquent for a period which exceeds 6 months but less than 2 years, and as such, renewal procedures state that a licensee must reapply for licensure, obtain 6 hours of TAC-approved continuing education, complete the 30-hour TAC-approved pre-licensure course, and retest as a licensee. Commission rules further state that the board of the TAC may waive the 30-hour course and retesting requirements upon written submission of good cause by the licensee. I've been unable to complete the 30-hour course due to issues with scheduling. Currently, and for at least the last year, all TAC-approved providers of this course offer it exclusively as a Thursday or Friday, Saturday, Sunday schedule periodically throughout the year. I'm employed as a ringman by 4 auctions, operating at a once-per-month rate individually, with each auction scheduled on Fridays. As a contract employee hired to work only 1 day per month by each respective auction, it's not feasible to miss even one of these sales and still retain the job and its income benefits for the future. As we are all well aware, on auction day, even excused absences come at a cost. I respectfully request that you waive the further requirements and allow me to renew my license in consideration of the steps already completed. I have reapplied for the auctioneer license and subsequently my firm license as well, and have completed 6 hours of TAC-approved continuing education. I appreciate your consideration in this matter. Basically, that's what we talked about last time.
So you have had the 6 hours?
Yes, sir.
And you have reapplied?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The application
Which
is in.
before you hadn't done that yet, had you?
Correct. That's right. Yeah, that seemed to be the question last time. I was confused. I thought that I had to get the requirements waived before I reapplied, so I had the cart in front of the horse. Now the application is in for both of those with a few checks totaling about $800 in renewal fees and late fees on those 2 licenses.
Have you ever had the 30 hours?
Yes, sir. I had to have it prior to licensing
So
initially.
you did have that originally?
Yes, sir.
But you're licensed, you're within the 2-year period, right?
Yes, sir. But it is rapidly closing.
Which always between 1 and 2 years, it's over the year. But
Right.
Well, we had 2 people up here last month, right? We had one that was over 2 years, right?
Yes.
That was one with Jay.
no, this is.
No, I was here
No,
with
he
Jay.
was one.
Okay, all right, well, I
Because
couldn't
it was getting
remember
close.
which
I remember
was
you were
which.
like within a month or 2 of the 2 years.
July will be the 2-year mark.
Yeah, because it's over the 2 years, I think.
I'll say with this one, basically, it's my recollection, sir, everyone seemed to be on the same page about it. We just lacked the written requirement,
I
which is
think you had got the cart before the horse.
Exactly.
You'd come up here without doing your 6 hours and without reapplying.
Well, I had the 6 hours, I just didn't have the application.
You had to reapply.
Yes, sir.
But you already had the 30 hours whenever you originally got your license.
Yes, sir, on the original licensing day.
Well, he's falling into the number 3 there.
We have a
Correct.
power to do this, don't we? We have a power to grant this.
Yes.
Provided written
Subsection.
submission. That's what we're doing here today.
Subsection 4 of Rule 0160-01-.22, which is titled Late Renewal of License, states in subsection 4, upon written submission of good cause shown, the Commission may by majority vote waive any or all of the penalties and requirements in paragraphs 1 through 3 of this rule, including but not limited to re-examination and additional education requirements, or in lieu thereof impose such other reasonable conditions or requirements as it deems appropriate. He would fall within subsection 3 because that deals with a licensee applying to renew a license 6 months or more after the expiration date, but less than 2 years. He falls within the subsection.
I would make a motion, if he pays the fees, the late fees, proper fees, and files the necessary papers, and shows proof of his 6 hours, that we may renew his license. Over 2 years.
Discussion.
Folks, this could be,
July.
In the end of July. It's become apparent, I mean, that there's not gonna exist between now and then, of course. It's not offered online, so the only way to do it is actual classroom instruction.
Yeah, to make a variance, he's had his 6 hours,
And he had the 30 hours before. The only
Right.
reason he do the 30 hours again would be part of the penalty.
Right.
Pay all his fines and done your 6 hours.
Yes, sir.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Thank you very much. Could I clarify, are the fees and penalties the same on the firm license? Okay, that was the way I sent it in. I wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Have any other unfinished or new business?
I don't, Mr. Chairman.
Once again, I would like to thank Commissioner Cunningham for going above and beyond the call of duty and coming in this morning and had other things to do. We couldn't have done it without him today.
That's all right, glad to do it.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So maybe.
All in favor, stand up.